Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to the Matura Express for English. My name is Karina and my task is to tell you something about brainstorming and exam strategies or how to prepare for an exam in general. There will be a second stream tonight. The topic will be related to the one that we are talking about now. In the second part, we will talk about what to actually expect in an oral exam. So the two topics go together quite well. Okay, as the title of today's stream already suggests, it's all about how to get ideas for an oral exam. It is about how to amplify the knowledge that you already have, because you've all taken some preparation courses, classes on the respective topic. But of course, you have to know more for the oral exams. So you have to prepare and kind of broaden the knowledge that you already have from your English lessons. So it is all about brainstorming ideas. I will give you I will tell you about how you could get new ideas and about how you could get ideas that go beyond what your textbook says, basically. First of all, I will introduce some methods of brainstorming, like how can you brainstorm, where can you get good ideas from. Then I will also show you two strategies of how you can put your ideas, your new knowledge into form, how you can put them on paper so that you can then at a later stage study them and revise them before the actual exams. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, as I said, it's all about brainstorming. One thing that I would suggest in your preparation in advance, so before the exam, is that you find, no, not that, that you find a so-called study buddy. You may have heard about the concept already. A study buddy is someone who takes the same exam than you do, or a similar exam. And you could pair up or team up and do some research together. The big advantage of the system is that you have someone to discuss your ideas with, to share your ideas with. And also another big advantage is that people usually have good ideas as well, and then you can share those ideas, discuss them. He or she, so your study buddy, might be able to give you some new ideas as well, or to question and challenge some of the ideas that you have. Some assumptions that you maybe have that are wrong, or that are, they should put differently in an oral exam. So a study buddy can be a very useful tool, if you want to call it that, in the course of preparation for an oral English exam. Then, of course, there are different ways of how you can brainstorm, different approaches to the big umbrella term of brainstorming. I will introduce a few, and you can then see if this method works for you. There are some more creative ways, like more for people who like to draw a little more and whose brains need a bit more creativity, I guess. The first one, for example, is the so-called that moment when you spell the word brain wrong, is the so-called brain writing. It is a technique used in creative writing, so it's a more creative process than just writing down keywords or copying keywords, facts from a textbook or from the internet. Brain writing basically means that you write down one keyword. Social ties, for example, as this has been the topic of previous screens. You write it down on a piece of paper, and then you write down everything that you associate with the word. So all the connections basically that your brain makes with social ties, for example, friends, classmates, neighbors. My picture's gone. Neighbors. Anyway. Whatever you associate with the topic, of course there is no right or wrong, as there also will be nobody to like correct your notes or anything. It basically helps you to give you some ideas of topics that you could elaborate on. It also gives you an idea of where to go in the whole topic and of maybe ideas that you should add. In the social ties topic, I only have like friends, classmates and neighbors, but of course there are also types of families and so on and so forth. So if you compare your notes with what your textbook or your notes from your English classes say, then you should, after all, have a really good broad overview of what there is in the topic. Another idea of brainstorming is one with a more fancy title. It's called star busting. It is basically a reverse approach to what you will be confronted with in the exams at a later stage. You basically anticipate questions that your interlocutors may ask you. So you sit down with a piece of paper again and try to formulate a couple of questions that are related to the topic. Usually, or it can be questions that already came up in your class, or questions that your teacher asked you in the lessons or during your lessons. So you try and formulate questions like, for example, if we stick to the topic, what are the challenges of a patchwork family, for example, of a patchwork family. You then, of course, try and answer the questions for yourself. The big advantage of the star busting system is that you can kind of anticipate questions because of what you've heard during the lessons, and then you're less likely to be caught off guard when you're asked the questions in the exam situations. Usually being caught off guard in exam questions kind of throws you off the track, and the more you can anticipate what questions you will be confronted with, the better for you, obviously. So I guess that the star busting is a really good idea to, first of all, prepare for the exams and also to see what is there in the topic. What else do we have? Of course, another idea of brainstorming, or that is related to brainstorming really, is you do some research on the internet. Your textbook won't give you everything that there is to a topic. And it is very important that in an oral exam situation you also give additional ideas. So ideas that were not necessarily part of your English lessons, but you can also prove that you looked up some ideas by yourself. If you research the internet, be careful about the sources that you use. There's a lot of material out there in the internet. Make sure that it is a trustworthy source. Usually sources that are trustworthy do have an author, so somebody who is responsible for the content, maybe a person or a company or an organization. In any case, doesn't matter what it is, it should definitely have an author, so somebody who is responsible for what has been put down or what has been put on the internet. Usually it also does have a date that tells you if it is like a current web page or if it was established 10 years ago. Might not be current anymore, might not be totally up to date anymore. So you may want to check for, first of all, authors and dates. What else can you do? In the course of your brainstorming, you can of course also put together a list of vocabulary. that is related to the topic. In social ties, for example, words like, what have we, siblings, extended families, and so on and so forth. So make sure you have a list of words that are related to the topic and that you also know how to pronounce them. Nowadays, online dictionaries do give you, or do have a pronunciation function as well. So make sure that you know how to pronounce the words that you are using. Also part of the brainstorming maybe, or for the preparation for the oral exam, I'd include a few good idioms or stock phrases that are related to the topic. You can of course also look them up on the internet. They always sound good and you can impress the examination board, which is an important factor in an oral exam. For example, so that you know what a stock phrase is, for example, let me get to the core of the matter, for example. Or let me point out the importance of XY, whatever it is. You make your life a lot easier if you prepare stuff like that beforehand or in advance, before the exam. During the preparation time for the exam, like right before the exam, you probably do not have time to really look up such words or don't really think about them. So I would definitely prepare some of them, include them in your brainstorming, also include them into your preparation so that you can revise them in the course of your preparation time. Yeah. Back to the vocab topic. If I were you, I would also try and find explanations for words, not just translations, as you're obviously not allowed to use any German during an English exam. I will make sure that I can explain stuff. Sticking with the social ties topic, for example, what is a blended family? Or what is an extended family? An extended family, so not just mom, dad, and 1 or 2 kids, but also aunts and uncles, and so on and so forth. Make sure that you can explain those words. Doesn't really look good if you get caught off guard and can't explain what they mean. So you can also include them into your brainstorming, maybe make a section, a box that gives you an explanation of the topic and not just, of the word, sorry, and not just a translation. Well then, of course, I think the most common way of organizing idea is writing down keywords or full texts. Some people do write full texts in the preparation, so basically one big essay about the topic. The big disadvantage of writing full texts is that in an oral exam they probably will not sound very natural, so stuff that you've written down and then memorized, learned by heart, normally don't really sound that natural. So I'd suggest that you make keywords, or for those of you who are a little more creative, work with mind maps or with clustering. You've heard both of the concepts before, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure you've worked with both of them. But I will show you how they work. I will illustrate how they work, or try to. My fabulous drawing skills. So, in a classical mind map, you have a keyword in the middle of the page. Oh, yeah, thank you. Oops. In a classical mind map, you have the umbrella term or the big word that you want to explain in the middle of the page. In this case, we have family types, then one association or one topic within the big field of family types would be the concept of the nuclear families. In your exams, you may have to explain what they are, so define the concept of a nuclear family, so what is it? You could also add an explanation for yourself, tying up with what I said before, what I said earlier. Make sure that you can explain them. Nuclear family is the traditional type of family, if you want to call it that, so mom and dad and 1 or 2 kids. Please be careful that you use your language cautiously. Make sure that your examination board knows that the word traditional is just a way of defining things. In terms of political correctness, we'd probably have to be a little careful here. So the traditional family, the way it used to be or whatever. So you could also add another concept, another first bubble, a patchwork family. We had that before. So mom and dad remarry, bring kids into the relationship. So again, concept and an explanation will definitely facilitate the learning for you. There are quite a lot of people out there who are visual learners. That means that they can memorize stuff that is in a mind map more easily than stuff that is just written down on a sheet of paper in keywords. So approaching the topic from a more like visual standpoint may help. What else could we do? We could also, of course, have single parents. You probably do not need an explanation here. Same-sex couples, and so on and so forth, so you'd have to add an explanation. I think you get the concept of what a mind map is. As I said, for all of you who are visual learners, who like to draw, or who always, well, you can test whether or not you're a visual learner. Usually people who are visual learners always draw on their on the sheets of paper that they have, especially during making phone calls or while making phone calls, or in your textbooks, for example. So if you have an English textbook that is full of little paintings, little drawings, you probably are a more visual type, and for you the concept of a mind map may work quite well. Similar to the mind map is what people who concern themselves a lot with like learning strategies and so on, with what they call clustering. Clustering is maybe a more creative approach, ties up with what we had in the very beginning, is mainly used in creative writing. The plan or the idea behind it is to connect your right and your left, or the right and the left hemisphere of your brain. Again, there's no censorship, so you can write whatever you want. There is no right or wrong. In any case, if I were you, I would then definitely do a selection process and discard some ideas, some items that are not suitable for an oral exam. Select ideas that fit your aim. You know what the most important aspects of a topic are. If you like reconsider what has been said during your lessons, or what like all the tips that your English teachers gave you, you do know what to focus on. So I would select ideas that fit the overall aim, or that then correspond to what the task is, but then you don't really know what your exam tasks will look like exactly. The idea of clustering is or the basic idea of clustering is the same than it is with mind maps, really. You have one central idea in the middle, and then you again write down everything that comes to your mind. Parents, for example, you have you have school, you have friends, and then additional ideas that you have and that tie up with one of the topics go at the end of a separate line. In school, it's usually the grades. The parents usually cause troubles when it comes to like going out, or when you have quite a few times that you do not particularly like. Friends are usually are sometimes unreliable. I guess you get the idea. It's a little less planned, a little less organized than a mind map is. It is a free writing activity, so you have bullet points, like the friends, school, and the parents are so-called bullet points, and then in a second step you associate adjectives or verbs that go with the bullet points that are usually nouns. So again, it is a strategy that may work quite well for the visual learners. Clustering maybe helps you to put ideas on paper that you would normally not think of if you were to write a simple essay. Sometimes if our brains are given the freedom to do whatever they want, basically, they come up with aspects that you may not think about otherwise. So once again, for you to compare mind maps, you've seen them before. More organized, more strategic, also give you the opportunity of elaborating on your vocab a little. So you have everything on one sheet, everything that belongs to a topic content-wise, and also the respective words that you need. And clustering, more creative, more basically it's writing down what you think. Then, as I said, in both cases you may want to undergo a selection process before the actual exam takes place. So that was mind maps and clustering. In your exams, it will be very important that you stick to the topic. So you have, as you all know, you have to do an individual long turn, a task where you are given a text and or some visuals to present. So the individual long turn is usually a presentation where you have input of whatever sort. As I said, usually it is a text. But then it is very important to also add some additional ideas to what the text says. So the text alone won't be enough for the exam as such. So the more additional ideas that you have, the better. And brainstorming perfectly lends itself for that. So the better the brainstorming was that you did in the course of the preparation time that you have, the better your arguments will be, and the more own input you will be able to present or to put forward in your exams. So use the time before the exams and prepare accordingly. As I said, this was some ideas as to how you can do brainstorming. Let's summarize them very quickly. So, how am I not able to write this word? So, as I said, the first one, the study buddies. Find someone who is willing to prepare the exam together with you. A friend is always good. You can discuss ideas. Maybe also challenge some assumptions. Maybe you find a topic that you do not agree on and can then discuss and add some new aspects to what both of you think. Then there are different methods of brainstorming. So how to get ideas, the more creative ones, the ones that have to do with free writes, that be the clustering or the brainwriting that I introduced at the very beginning. Then there's of course the internet. an infinite source of ideas. Just make sure that your sources are good. Usually what you are taught in school or during your regular lessons is that Wikipedia is not the only source in the world. So make sure that you have some additional sources at your disposal. And structuring ideas in the form of a cluster or a mind map. What I think is also important, like now we've been talking about ideas how to brainstorm, but in the preparation for the exams, so not when you're actually set there at examination day, but in the course of the preparation in the weeks and months before the exam. Of course, it is also important to organize your ideas while you're preparing. You're actually preparing for the 15 minutes that you will have to speak in your exam. You get a text and or a visual as input, especially when it comes to the text. It is very important that you filter the main ideas, that you filter the arguments that you think are the most important ones in the text, so that you find the focus of the text, if you want to call it that. I would highlight them during your first reading so that you know how many important arguments that there are in the text and that you can kind of plan ahead time-wise, because you have a time limit and you should of course be able to fill the time limit, so there should not be any time left. But you should also make sure that you can fit all the main arguments, all the important aspects into the presentations or whatever you have to do. So I would highlight all the important things in the, or all the important arguments in the text. Maybe use multiple colors. Something that usually works quite well with me. Has to do with the way how our brains work. I think using multiple colors in highlighting may help you. So you use yellow, for example, for the pro arguments and blue for the con arguments, or other way around, or pink or whatever. In any case, multiple colors do help our brains to like structure what a text has to offer. So that may help you as well. Of course, you can also make a mind map on the prompt sheets or on the prompt cards that you have. You all know those TV shows where the spokesperson or the person who presents has those nice little cards. They are called prompt cards. You'll get prompt cards for your exams as well. So you can also draw a mind map on them, of course. There are no limitations really. Make sure you only write down keywords. There are no full sentences allowed really, because in the exam it's not about your reading skills, it's about your speaking skills. But on the prompt cards you can pretty much do whatever you want. The same strategies apply basically. You can highlight stuff, you can use multiple colors, different types of pens, whatever. Also draw mind maps, keywords. One important thing also for your prompt cards, and that's a piece of advice from me as I've done a lot of oral exams in my life. Every English teacher's favorite word, Lincoln words. If I were you, I would definitely write them down on my prompt cards already in advance, because in the course of the speaking, when you're kind of nervous and in an exam situation, you probably won't think about all the nice Lincoln words that you've learned. So stuff like as a next point, additionally, and so on and so forth. Make sure that you already add them on your prompt cards, because that will give your whole talk a little more structure, makes it easier for the examination board to follow, and well, that can only give you plus points really. Okay, what else is there to say about brainstorming and organizing ideas. I think that's it. As I said, you have probably already figured out what type of learner you are. So there are some people who like to read stuff, who like to read texts and then filter information and write down simple summaries or write down summaries about what they've read. There's also the visual types of learners. They usually work quite well with mind maps and clusters. Of course, there are also auditive types of people. These are the people who learn best when they hear stuff. So you can also record yourself, basically. So you prepare a 5-minute presentation on the topic social ties, on family types, for example. You then talk about them, record yourself, and then listen to it. Or you listen to stuff on the internet. There's some excellent platforms. For example, this is not a very nice E. There's a very good internet platform called TED. Also has an additional title that says something like TED Ideas Worth Spreading. There we go. It is, or the English they use can at times be quite difficult, but the ideas that they have are really, really good. It's talks of either professionals in the field or about people who just have something to say on whatever topic. Definitely lends itself for your brainstorming or for the preparation, because they will definitely be able to give you some additional ideas. You hear them, so the main ideas or the ideas that you like will definitely stick to your brain or stick with you, basically. The English, as I said, isn't always that easy. But then there's transcripts as well, very elaborate transcripts at that. They give you, so the transcripts give you the minutes of where in the talk or when in the talk the respective thing is said. So you can like read up on information that you did not understand and then switch back to the actual talk. So a very good platform for those of you who think that they learn better when they hear stuff. So recordings are a very good idea for more auditive types of people. As I said, you can also record yourself and then listen to stuff, or record you and your study buddy if you work together with a person, and then listen to the stuff that you've said. There's basically an unlimited amount of ideas out there, or an unlimited amount of how you can successfully brainstorm. Yeah, I hope that my ideas were useful for you. And as I said, there will be another talk that ties up with what I've just said. I will talk you through the main criteria for a successful oral exam, and I will also give you some, or I will help you to find some structure for your oral exams. Thank you very much, and goodbye.